Okay, so this is going to be a quick video on how to find reputable sources for your research. So to start off, there are some points to pay attention to when you're looking for credible sources. So you want to find materials that have been published within the last 10 years. So that's a little bit flexible, but if it's older than 10 years, you just want to take a closer look on it and see if it's still relevant. Research articles written by respected and well-known authors, so you want them to be experts in their field and make sure that the people writing they know what they're talking about and they have a lot of background in the content area you're looking at. Websites registered by government or educational institutions, they end in .gov or .edu or .ac. Those are great resources to look at. Academic databases, which you have an abundance of access to with the library. Academic Search Premier or JSTOR are examples of these. And then materials from Google Scholar. So if you go on google.com/scholar, you'll have access to scholarly articles that are credible and usually very good sources to review. So some things to avoid when you're looking for sources, some flags that it might not be credible is if it's out-of-date material. So for example, if you're studying education and you're looking at material from 30 years ago, well, technology wasn't a big thing 30 years ago. So that's really changed how education is done these days. So it might be out of date or not super relevant for your argument. Keep that in mind. Posts from social networks, so Facebook, Instagram, anything like that, you're getting information is probably not the most credible. It's likely opinion pieces or fluff articles to get your attention, but not really to give you accurate information. Blogs can be edited by anyone, so be wary of those. Research articles without citations, and websites ending in .com, .org, or .net. All of those to keep an eye out for. So here's some questions. We're going to choose the one that's not a reliable source of those 4 options. Choose the most credible source of those 3 options. This should be a pretty quick review. The customer review is not a reliable source. Organization website, yes. Newspaper, yes. Book, yes. But a customer review, probably not. And then choose the most credible source here. The New York Times obviously is the most credible compared to Blogspot and Prezi. And then if we look at here, if a source is credible, it is trustworthy. A blog, not true. And why should you be careful about using Wikipedia as a credible source? So if we take a look at these options, references for the information aren't listed. Users can leave comments about the information on the site. Entries can be written by an anonymous person. Information can be used by anyone without proper citation. So a source is, if it's credible, it's trustworthy. It means you can trust the information that's being shared to you. Why you should be wary of Wikipedia is that really anyone can edit it, so you're not really sure who the author of a Wikipedia article is. But we will talk about the importance of Wikipedia and how it can be helpful to you in a little bit. .org means the page is associated with a nonprofit agency, government, educational group, the military. And .com means the web page is run by an educational group, a commercial group, the military, or the government. So .org is a nonprofit agency, most likely, and a commercial group for .com. So that's usually trying to sell something. That's what you're going to see most often. .gov means the web page is run by an educational group, a commercial group, the military, the government. When using a web page, you want to use one whose purpose is to persuade, inform, sell a product, share a hobby. And which website would probably be the most credible source about literacy? literacyresearchstudies.edu, you2canreadbetter.com, readingstartshere.com, youthreadingcoalition.com. So if we look at the answers, .gov is a government web page. You want a web page that is informing you, not trying to sell you anything or persuade you to buy anything or do anything, not sharing a hobby. It's supposed to be giving you factual information. And then which website would be most credible? literacyresearchstudies.edu, and you can tell that by the .edu. So that can always be your hint on what website is best to go to. This is a great video if you want to watch another video from someone else to learn more about finding credible sources and what makes a credible source. Other than that, writing an academic essay is hard. It's an uphill struggle. There's so much information out in the world. And, how are you going to find your sources that are right for your academic paper? So let's talk about it. Start with Wikipedia. Here she comes. She's a good thing. Use her. Wikipedia is very useful information, and I encourage you to use this as a starting point. So there is a reference list at the bottom of the Wikipedia page, and it is a great tool because all of the sources that people have been using when they're writing their Wikipedia entries are right there at your disposal. So if I looked up a Wikipedia article about Edgar Allan Poe and I wanted to learn about his personal life, I would scroll down to the reference list and see if there's any titles that talk about his personal life and talk about his family, so that I get that information, because my paper might be on how his family and personal life influenced his writing and his poetry. So you can look at that list and use that, but just don't cite Wikipedia itself. Use the sources that are referenced by Wikipedia at the bottom of the article. Get the most out of the library. The library is a free resource. It's a great resource. It has so many databases and journals and magazines. You have access to everything in the library, online. It's there. So if you go onto Wikipedia and you find these sources in the reference list, or you use Google Scholar and you find these titles, take that, put it into the database at the library, and you'll get free access to the article that you're looking for. So don't pay for anything, but if you're finding stuff through Wikipedia or Google Scholar, totally fine. If you hit a paywall, just put the title into the search bar for your library and you'll have access to it. It is a great, great resource. So getting started. If you're going to, get started on your research, you can start with Wikipedia like we talked about. When you get into an article that you like, if you hit Control F, you can jump to the sections that are interesting to you. So again, if I find an article about Edgar Allan Poe and I want to know about his personal life, I'll search for the word personal, mother, father, children, wife, anything like that, and see if I can find the section about his family and personal life. Also, you can use Google Advanced Search. So if you go to Google and then over on the right, you'll see the little gear symbol. Click on that and you'll see an option for Advanced Search. In Advanced Search, you can be much more specific about what kind of information you're looking for and add changes. So you can add in extra words, dates, and things like that. If you use quotation marks to narrow your search, you can use that. So instead of tanks in World War II, you'd put tanks in World War II in quotation marks, or tanks in World War II. And what that does is it pulls up any titles that have those words in it, rather than any articles that have to do with tanks in World War II. And then find specific types of websites. So you can add site:.gov or .edu or .org, depending on what sort of sites you want. Or you can even specify the type. So when you search on Google, sometimes it'll give you slides or Word documents. So this way you can specify that you want a PDF. And so you just put that file type, .pdf. So that'll narrow your search. And then the other option is you can click Search Tools, and then you can change it from any time, which is down as the option, to a range. So if you want something in the last 5 years or last year or in a particular month, you can change it for that. So you really want to narrow down all your sources, because if you just put Edgar Allan Poe or something very broad into Google, you're going to get a bajillion hits, and that's going to be too much for you. So you want to narrow it down as much as possible so that it doesn't stress you out with too many sources and options of things to look at. So let's take some time to actually work and find those sources. If you have any questions, feel free to ask it, and I hope this was helpful to you.